Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Christian Reeve podcast. Today's guest is a filmmaker hailing all the way from New Jersey in the United States. His name is Wayne Cella. Welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's an honor. It's been, yeah, I've had quite a few shows lately where I've just been doing like what I call like discussion shows, where it's just me, and it's somewhat new territory because I'm used to obviously interviewing people on the show, and every show is different. Sometimes it's more formal, sometimes it's more laid back, but that kind of keeps it interesting and keeps it a
Sure.
challenge for me, yeah. And it's
Keep
what
people on
have
their toes.
yeah, well, no, yeah, it's more like I get kept on my toes, to be honest. I can never sleep on things. I always do the same amount of research every single time. Um, but I'll have the research and then I probably won't even look at it. That's the reality. But yeah, no, I mean, but what I wanted to say is that I did a bunch of these discussion shows lately, and then I don't know, I feel like I get rusty. Do you know what I mean? Like if I'm not doing it like every single week, and then I have a new guest, I suddenly get a bit like that. Today before the show, I got a bit jittery, and I was like, oh. I hope I don't mess it up. Like,
I'm sure it'll be fine.
sweet, sweet. Okay, let's just jump into like your early beginnings. How did you get into filmmaking?
Wow. Excuse me. Essentially, like I really got into writing. I think at a young age. I think I wrote my first it was like 150 page murder mystery at like 15 years old with a good friend of mine. And like that happened, and then a couple of years later, like I started making short films and writing with another group of friends. So I was like 18, 19 years old. And unfortunately, creative endeavors don't always pay the bills. And so uh I pursued stability, right? I mean, that's what we all kind of do. And I
Oh,
really didn't. Yeah. I
sorry,
really
I've just never heard it explained like that. Like, I think that's brilliant. Yeah, I am also pursuing stability and
stability.
wishing that I could pursue creativity. But anyway, go on. So,
Yeah, exactly. And so for like 20 years, I didn't really do anything. I didn't write, wasn't creative.
wow.
And then I moved to Connecticut for my day job, my real job. And I met this group of guys that I worked with essentially. And we would take breaks together, and they would like talk nonsense, but they would tell these stories and make up these characters, and it was all very like silly, but it kind of got the wheels turning. And at some point, one of them was like, "Hey, like we should make this a movie," and I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, we should." And so I wrote it. I wrote the script. It was the first time in 20 years that I'd really done anything. And it was a feature length, like, 95-page script. And I'm still very proud of that script, but nothing's ever happened with it. But it was a fun story. It had some touching elements to it at the same time, all very silly and goofy, but uh, it kind of like stoked the fire. For so long I had kind of like tried to stay away from that, and really I feel like I like made a concerted effort to not be creative. And suddenly it was like, okay, well, like this seems to be calling to me. I need to do it. And so I made a short film in Connecticut, and then we wound up moving back to New Jersey shortly after. And I wrote a couple things. I was always writing, shooting, little uh, micro shorts or short films or whatever. Some of them didn't even have dialogue. And then at some point in December of 2017, uh, we were on Christmas break, and I wrote a short film called Talisman, and that kind of really it really got everything going. So yeah, I wrote this short. I really liked it. I shared it with my best friend, who is also a writer, very talented, John Manning, and I said, like, what do you think? And he was like, I think we have something here. So he kind of, I call John the script doctor. Basically, I write everything, it all comes out in this big blob, and then John like molds it into something and makes it sound pretty, essentially.
Yeah.
And so John like kind of took a pass at it, and we had a script, and it was, I mean, I think January of 2018 by this point, and it just sat there. And but I kept thinking about it, and like I said, I had shot some short films, but nothing. I used my friends as actors, and whatever resources I had available, essentially. And but in May, I don't know what happened, but I was driving home from work one night, and I was like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna put up a casting call. Like, I'm not gonna work with friends. I'm gonna hire actors. They'll be committed because I'm paying them, right? And I went home that night. We were getting ready to eat dinner, and I hit submit on the casting call. And it was just it was essentially four characters, and I went and ate dinner, and you know what, 10, 15 minutes later, after we were done eating dinner, it's getting ready to do the dishes, essentially, and I checked, and I had like 30 submissions
Damn.
for these roles, and I was like, wow, like I wasn't expecting that. And then all of a sudden I got like really overwhelmed, and I'm like, whoa, did I do the right thing? Um, but we went the next few weeks. We went through kind of the casting process. We got self tapes from actors. One of the actors actually you've interviewed before, Colin Roach.
Oh
And
man, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And so we wound up, getting our cast together, and we shot this short film. And it turned out really well. It was I feel like at a higher level than anything I had ever done before. And we had so much fun that I feel like as soon as we called wrap, um, I started talking to the cast and crew, and I was like, we're going to turn this into a web series. Like, we need to be back together. They had great chemistry as a team, and yeah, like I said, it was so much fun. I was like, let's do it again. And so a year later, we came back and we filmed the rest of Talisman the series, which is available on Amazon Prime and a couple of other streaming networks. So that's kind of how it all started.
Man, there's so much to unpack there.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say this straight off the bat. Like, I think there's something to be said for like when your creative work or any kind of work that you're doing, like when you enjoy it more. Like, I remember like when I first started this podcast, for example, in the very beginning, it's not to say that I didn't enjoy it, but like, I was very formal with it, and I was trying really hard, and my focus was always, oh, the biggest numbers, or like how to make it look professional, or this or that, or the other, right? And I got really bugged down with it, and I'd sit and complain about on my live streams about not having enough listeners or whatever. And then somewhere I started listening to my live stream audience and my community, and they were like, stop focusing on the numbers and just start focusing on why you do this,
Yeah.
And then that was also right around the time that I really started giving acting a push and pursuing that. And I started to realize like the best thing you can do if you're a creative is to focus your mindset on creating the best art that you can and making that your focus. Like, everything else is immaterial. Like, yeah, great, you want to make money. Yeah, great, you want to be successful. Like, all these things, we all want these things. But like,
Sure.
when you're enjoying it, I know it sounds like really basic, obvious thing to say, but take this podcast as an example. I enjoy this podcast a hell of a lot more than I did. I mean, it's every time I sit down to do it, I enjoy it, I love it, and I remember why I do it.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with any of the things, the goals that I have for it. It's just I'm here to have a good conversation with someone, showcase them, have some chemistry, whatever, hopefully put something out that people will want to listen to, etc., etc. And I think when it comes to filmmaking and the arts and everything, it's the same principle. If you enjoy the people you work with, what you produce is just going to be better. It's because people can see through these things as well, you know.
They absolutely can. I totally agree with that. And it's funny. I had a podcast years ago,
Oh,
again
cool.
with my my co-writer and best friend John Manning. We did a podcast. It was actually when I was in Connecticut, and even that, I guess, is kind of a precursor to kind of getting that creative juice flowing again. Um, but same kind of experience. You know, in the beginning, we started out super serious, and this is what it's going to be. And I'm like a planner to the point that it's absurd sometimes. I feel like I'm a little OCD at
Love that.
times, um, and yeah, but it was only when we kind of just let go and really started having a conversation as two friends that I feel like we found our groove and really started to enjoy it. So yeah, I totally relate to that. Um, and and to your point, you know, when you enjoy what you're doing and you're passionate about it, it really does shine through. And you know, it's funny because Talisman went on to do all of these crazy things
Yeah,
that
you
I
won best director in a drama series.
that's actually for the new
Oh,
series. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
sorry, my bad.
No,
Okay.
we won. I won Best Director in a Sci-Fi for Talisman. Yeah, we played festivals all around the world, and it was like seriously mind-boggling, you know, because honestly, all I wanted to do was you know make a short film or that wound up becoming a web series and just tell a good story and have a good time. And I think because we were able to accomplish that, you know, like I said, we played festivals around the globe. We won some awards, and it was just like this whole mind-boggling experience that was like, wow, like I'm doing, you know, or I did what I loved and was passionate about, and it really just it seemed to resonate and really work out well. So it was a great experience.
I just want to add one thing to this as well. Like when I think about all my heroes in acting and music, like they only really started properly shining through when it was very clear that money and fame and everything is like the least of their concerns. Do you know what I mean? It's
Right? Yes.
like I look at like I was lucky enough to work on a Christopher Nolan movie just as an
That's
extra.
awesome.
It
Yeah.
was a lot of fun, and I think one thing that I realized is that I don't get me wrong. Of course, that guy wants big box office money, but the guy's been a millionaire for many many years. Like I doubt,
Right.
like you can tell that it's passion. Like he's got an obsession with like telling a story and having it look a certain way and kind of being you'll notice that all of his films kind of fit that brief, just like
Yeah.
Tarantino or whoever. It's like they all fit a certain brief and they tell a certain tale and like they always feel big. I don't know how else to put it. Like a big deal. Like this is something you need to see. Like kind of thing.
Exactly. Right.
Like a spectacle. Like a spectacle. Right. And I feel like as creators, as performers, like that's always the biggest goal, isn't it? To try and see how far we can push this. Like how big can this be? Where can this go? Like what can we do? What can we achieve with this? Like I mean, I really think if your mindset is just the sky's the limit and let's just focus on making this as good as it can be, who knows where it'll go? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. And you know, it's funny because for Talisman we had this table read, right? Uh I was very like focused on doing everything properly.
right.
And so we had this table read and I remember at the end of the table read, first off, I was like blown away because it was the first time I had seen actors, you know, performing as opposed to my friends saying some lines, right? Big difference, big deal. And so I was very blown away, but everybody was like, okay, like what happens after we film this? Like, what's the intention? And I was like, well, you know, we'll put it in some festivals and, you know, we'll see what happens. And they're like, okay, you know, like that's a sound strategy, right? I mean, that makes sense. But in the meantime, I'm like, I have no freaking idea if anybody's gonna want to, you know, put this little short film or show into a festival. So it was almost like I feel like when you're creative, you have to have some audacity. Um,
Yeah. Do you know, I think I told this story on the podcast the other day, but or maybe I haven't. Maybe I've only told it on the live stream. I saw a video on TikTok a while back where this girl was talking about how like her mother had lived with Bruce Willis before he became famous, like in
wow.
yeah, like in the early 80s or something when he was just dirt poor and just had nothing.
Right.
And apparently she'd said that she knew he was going to be a big deal from day one because of the way he carried himself and because of the way he was. And then her daughter sort of said that to be successful in this industry that we're trying to go into, you do got to be a bit audacious and or
Yeah,
egotistical. And but it's not like I think I'm better than everyone. It's I think I'm good enough. And
exactly.
that's so hard to explain to people who've got like a negative mindset or like because they'll just look at it and be like, "Oh, you think a lot of yourself." And it's like, "Yeah, I do, but not for the reasons that you think."
Exactly.
It's like I think a lot of
Yes.
myself because I want to get somewhere with this. I believe in my heart and my soul that I am destined for big things, and it's just a matter of time. And it's maybe it is an egotistical thing. I don't know, but I don't sit there thinking I'm better than anyone else. I just think we all need a shot in life, and that we all have different. You know what I mean? Like I look at people that do, I don't know, things like completely different. Like let's say I look a ballerina, right? Just for argument's sake,
Yeah.
right? Someone a person putting in like like years and years and years and years of work into that to then pull off an amazing performance. And I look at that in awe and just go, that's incredible. And that's what I look at everything in life, not just arts, but just everything in life. Like sometimes I like to call it flow state. Like you're in your zone and you're doing whatever you're doing, and only you can do it in that way. Do you know what I mean? Like when you're just
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
totally confident and you know what you're doing and you're on it. And
Yeah.
it's like we're all capable of that. It's
Yeah.
just about believing in yourself.
It is. And, it's funny because, like with Talisman as an example, and I don't think people talk about this enough, but there is a mental health aspect to being creative, right?
Hmm.
So, for example, when I decided to kind of take the plunge and do this, like I was like, oh, people are going to be supportive. My friends, my family, everybody's going to think this is a great idea, and it was not the case, right? At all. And so, um, like that affects you. It
Yeah.
affects your mental health because, um, to your point, as much as you believe in yourself and want to believe in what you're doing, sometimes when people don't go along for the ride, you're left kind of feeling like hollow. And that's kind of how it was. I had like my husband, for example, super supportive. I think he's crazy even still, that he supported me in the way that he did, but he really did. Super supportive about it. I had some friends, but then there was the rest. And so, we take the plunge, we make this short film, we turn it into a web series. And I remember, I I sent it to a friend when it was
Hmm.
finished, and all I got back was like, it's kind of campy. Is that what you were going for? And I was like, what? Um,
So
and
just to is this the one that was about LGBTQ themes, or was this the other one?
no, this
Oh,
is this is the
I was gonna say because it'd be
sci-fi, right?
hilarious if it was an
Well, yeah,
intended gay film, and then they're like, "Oh, it's a bit campy." It's like,
yeah, well, yeah,
really?
exactly. But yeah, like,
Yeah,
so it just, like I said, it was very affecting to me, especially in the
yeah.
beginning, to like not have the support of people that I really thought I would. And and then like Talisman like blew up. And I mean, we're not a household name by any
No,
means,
but
but
it's
but
well, no. Look at it. Let's look at it like relatively speaking. So in the United States, you got like what, like 50 million people, 100 million, something like that. How many people?
I think 250 or
Two-
300 million. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
right. So you take like, okay, like for instance, I watch professional wrestling, right? And week by
Love
week,
it.
wah, wah,
Love it.
I like it even more now. Um, so like years ago there was like 10 million people watching it on a Monday
Hmm.
night. Now there's like 2-3 million, which doesn't sound like a lot, but
Yes.
it's still a big core committed audience of people watching it. And the one
Right.
thing I've learned about acting and filmmaking is that while you might not be in like the box office or whatever, you can still have like a huge following for something, and it's all relative to like what your goals are. Like if your goal as a filmmaker is to just be like one of the best ever, then yeah, I can see why looking at short film you'd be like, oh, it's not quite where I want it to be, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like, but it's it's you know, life is a marathon, not a race. It's like you'll get there, but you have to keep doing what you're doing and believing in it. And then to get one of those films that's big box office, you need, I think, two things, which is three things: one, money; two,
Yeah.
the connections; and then three, I think something that has either enough relatability that a mass audience can connect to it, or just so bizarre that somehow it just captures the imagination. Do you know? Like, you remember Squid Game? Do you remember that?
Yes. Yes.
Like, I feel like there's, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just the funkiness about it. Because Korean cinema and TV is incredible. Like, there's been so
And
many.
it's huge. Yeah.
Right. But like, it was a big thing for a lot of people. And I think, to be fair, a lot of that was just lockdown. We had nothing else better to do, so might as well watch it. And it was incredible. But apparently the guy was, and that's an amazing story in and of itself. The
It is.
director of
Yeah.
that, it was just sitting on that for like 10 years.
Yeah.
I
And
can't
nobody
imagine.
wanted anything to do with it,
Oh,
right?
that's
No
mad.
one wanted anything to do with it. And then it becomes the biggest show of all time, essentially, for Netflix. So yeah, it's awesome.
That's the thing as well. All it takes is like one person to believe in you and take a shot on you, and then boom, your career goes off. Like I get my live stream audience tell me this all the time, because you know I get rejections all the time. I get told, you know, you don't have the look, you're not good enough, you don't have the voice, you blah 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 blah. You know, um, but then I've got this core audience of people that follow me that is growing, and they truly do believe in me, and I'm so thankful for them, and I don't know what I'd do without them, to be honest. And when I hear that, I used to think like, yeah, yeah, whatever. Like not like I don't care, but like, yeah, no, like, you know, like these are
I
nice
know.
things, these are nice things to hear, but I don't truly believe this. But now I
Right.
believe. Now I really truly do believe. But it's a case of just, I don't know, you keep rattling the cage. Like I was thinking on the way home from work, like just a quote came to mind in my head. I was thinking like, if you keep knocking on doors, eventually someone's got to answer. Do you know what I mean? Like
You're
someone
absolutely
has to,
right. Yeah.
even if it's to just tell you to go away, you can be like, ah, but I'll come back. I'll keep coming back until you give me a shot. See?
Right.
But it's so
And
many of the,
sometimes that's what it takes, right? It is exactly what you said, to keep knocking on the door and seeing what happens. So yeah, absolutely. It's tenaciousness. Like um if if you just quit as soon as you face any, and especially in this business, and as an actor, I'm sure you know it. I'm lucky. I feel like I'm lucky because I write a story and then I choose to produce it. Um, so I'm not asking permission from anybody. I'm not beholden to a studio, right? I come up with the story and I'm going to make it. As an actor, like you just, I feel like it's a lot of rejection and a lot of negativity. For me, it's like, look, I'm going to make this and I'm going to put it out there, and people are either going to like it or they're not. That's affecting, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, I did it on my terms. Where as an actor, there are so many, things that are out of your control. You know,
but
um,
that's, I think, again though, I completely relate to everything you're saying. Like I know we're coming at it from different perspectives, but like my personal opinion is I don't give a fuck if someone rejects me or says, yeah, because like what they think those words are going to stop me from doing what I want to do. Like I've had people
right.
literally turn around to me and be like, you will not achieve your dreams, you will not do this, and I'm like, fucking watch me. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I remember being told at, I don't know, however it was, 11, 12 years old, that I couldn't sing. I was tone deaf and I'd never sing. And all these years later, I'm able to hit like falsetto. So,
Right.
ha!
Take that. Yeah,
But you know
exactly.
what I mean? It's like, I feel like the best way to always approach these things is just, I mean, one thing I will say though about filmmaking and acting and everything is that, you know, you could be perfect for the role, but you're just not quite the right fit. Like, you know, for instance, Godfather, Robert De Niro auditioned for the role of Sonny, and yeah, he did a pretty good interpret. It was a decent little. You could see him maybe doing it, but I can't remember the actor's name that they went with in the end. That's good. I mean, well, the guy that they went with in the end was a better fit,
Right.
and I think visually, like if you watch the movie and you see like how he composes himself and everything, it's a better fit. And that's the problem, is like it's a very visual industry, but it's not all about, as people think it is, like, oh, it's only about looks. You have to be good looking. You have to be this. There is that. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty of that, but like, there's plenty of artists and creators that don't care about that, and they're just looking for like, okay, this is the dream that I have in my head. Do these people fit in that, or do you know what I mean? Can they make my dream come alive, kind of thing?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And like, so I guess we kind of we ran our course with Talisman, right? And it was like, okay, what comes next? But during the course of Talisman, in between when we shot the short film and the series, like I went through some stuff,
Okay.
and um, I remember waking up. It was Valentine's Day, 2019. Not to turn this into a very heavy show, but
No, please
but, but
share away.
yeah, on Valentine's Day in 2019, I woke up, and as I do every morning, I like grabbed my phone right away, right, and I start like skimming social media, and there was an article from a local news station in Philadelphia, and it was about clergy sexual assault and sexual abuse. And I was like, I'm not reading that. And I kind of like got up and like tried to go about my day, but I wound up reading the article. It like compelled me. And there have been some great films that have been made on this topic, and so many exposés done in the media and stuff like that. And I had tuned all of it out. But on this day, it was just like, I need to read this. And I read it, and attached to that article was a list of clergy in the area that had been credibly accused. And essentially, in other words, the church had investigated and found the claims to be, merit based, essentially. and and I was like, do I really want to do this? And I again, I closed the article. I tried to go about my day, and but again, it just I don't know what it was that day, but I was compelled, and so I went back to the article, and I opened the list, and I was scrolling through. I was looking for a name, obviously, and I knew it would be there, you know, even though I hadn't done anything to put that person on that list. I just knew it would be there, and sure enough, it was. And it just kind of, as a geez, at that point, what, 45-year-old man, it kind of uh, really like rocked everything, at my foundation, because for a long, long time, I had pushed this to the side, or I had made once in a while I would make a joke about it, in poor taste. You know what I mean? But that's the way we kind of cope with things sometimes. And my husband, we've been together for 16 years now. So at the time it was what, 13. Um, he he like came, he was getting ready for work, and he came into the room, and he was like, "Are you okay?" Like, I guess it was all over me at that point. And I like showed him the name, and he's like, who's that? And I told him the story. And in 13 years, this is my husband, the person I spend my life with, that I'm closer to than anybody in the world. And he was like, you said something years ago, but it was very veiled. I didn't really know um, that it had really happened. I assumed, but there was no detail. And so I I have another best friend who lives in North Carolina, and in at that time of my life when all of this kind of took place, we were super, super close. And I contacted him that day, Aaron, and I said, "Hey, do you remember me ever talking about a priest?" And he was like, "Yeah, like it was yesterday." And he was like, "But again, no details, you know." But anyway, so it kind of, like I said, it really turned everything on its side, and for me, and I felt like I don't know, I had to kind of reassess and readjust to everything. And but again, like I said, we're in the midst of pre-production on Talisman, and I just remember I said to Colin, in fact, one of your past guests, I was like, I need to tell the story. And so Talisman is this like big spectacle, right? I remember playing film festivals where uh, you have all these like artsy art house films, and then there's Talisman, and it's like a little mini blockbuster. That's what I used to tell people. Like it has, visual effects and all this crazy stuff. And so I always felt out of place in some of those film festivals because, like I said, you had this artistic stuff and then this like for your entertainment kind of story in Talisman. Um, but I told Colin, I was like, I need to tell this story, and it is 180 degrees from what Talisman is. Like, I need to find a way to tell the story with authenticity and compassion. And I started working on it. As soon as we wrapped Talisman, I started writing our next series, which is Insignificant. And apples and oranges experience, but but and topic really, but you know, probably the most rewarding thing I've done so far.
Other than wanting to tell your story, what do you hope to kind of achieve by telling this story?
So it's funny when I guess it's like this. I grew up in the 90s. Those were my formative years, right? And in the 90s, there wasn't representation. And I know that that's a hot topic among people. Some people think that representation is overdone and people are trying too hard and all that stuff. But representation matters. And
Mm.
and uh, growing up in the 90s, the victim of a sexual assault, um, there was nothing for me to relate to. There was no positive representation of the LGBTQ society in the media. There really wasn't. Now, in the late 90s, we had Will and Grace, and it was like it was finally starting to turn. But in the early 90s, there was nothing. And if there was a gay character in a film or on a show, it was often, derogatory or stereotypical or whatever. So I think more than anything, what I really wanted to accomplish with this is, since I felt alone when I went through that experience, that I don't want other people to feel alone. So if they're
Mm.
going through that or have gone through that, to know that there is hope, and B, you can overcome and see that they're not alone. Those are the things that are important to me.
Absolutely. Um, I am intrigued as well because there's a lot of series going around right now that are like, for instance, just it's a little bit of a diversion, but same principle. Um, that 90s show, which is
Yeah.
like a direct sequel to that
Yeah.
70s show, really, really cool.
Yep.
But you got a bunch of Gen Z actors do it playing 90s kids, and there's been some people going back and forth on like, oh, well, is this good? Is this a bad thing? Like, I mean, they're actors. Like, what difference does it make? I don't
Yeah.
get that argument. I really don't.
I don't
Um,
either.
but one thing I think is interesting is telling historic stories, especially with like themes such as LGBTQ, versus telling like modern day ones. Like, I mean, I guess what I'm asking is like, what value do you think a series like this can have, where it's sort of telling a historical perspective, and it's also, you know, exploring sexuality as well.
I think I actually really struggled with the decision of whether to set it in modern day or in the 90s. But I felt in the end, a bunch of people were like, you've got to set it in the 90s. Um, and I'm not sure that I totally agree. I think the story would work today
Mm.
as well. But I think the 90s, because of where we were as a society, in the world, even, um, where things were so much less accepted. And I don't. I think there are universal themes to people who are LGBTQ. I think we all go through um, some isolation and depression and loneliness, because I think when you're kind of realizing your sexuality, sometimes it's a very isolating feeling, right? When I was a kid, I just remember feeling like I was the only person in the entire world that felt the way that I felt. And obviously that's not the case, but that's how I felt. And so I think, yeah, the decision to set it in the 90s was really to let that time frame kind of inform the story, and show how far we have come. We have come far. Growing up, I didn't consider that I would ever be married, or that it would be allowed, or anything. It
Damn,
wasn't,
yeah.
yeah, it
Wow.
wasn't anything that was on the plate, because it just wasn't a thing. And so, but here I am. I've been married for almost 13 years now. And
Congratulations.
thank you. And yeah, so I kind of wanted to let that time frame inform the story a little bit. Because it is the time frame in which I grew up. But also, um, like I said, it shows how far we have evolved as a society. We still have a long way to go with so many things, but at the same time, I look at 30 years as being forever. It's really not. It's a very small fragment of time, and we've come a long way in those 30 years. So um, yeah, I think that is kind of uh, the point of the story, and like I said, to establish hope and let people know that they're not alone.
You mentioned briefly earlier about how there is representation now, and it's maybe there's sometimes too much, or whatever. But what do you make of Hollywood's kind of approach to representation so far? Like, I have my personal opinions, but my personal, I'll give you my take on
Sure.
this, right? I think the focus should always be on the story itself that you're telling. You should never do things to, I don't know, fill a quota or like tick a box or whatever. Like, the focus should be, this is the story I'm telling and these are the characters. You know, if a particular relationship is part of a narrative, great, make it part of the narrative. Like, I think there's so many series that do this really well. I think Star Trek does it really well.
Yes.
Like the new series. I think I mean, it's not sexuality, but Mandalorian season 2, we watched like the end of like the final episode. Everyone in that shot is a female.
Right.
There's no males, and I didn't even realize. I sort of was watching it, and then I was looking on Twitter like the day after, and everyone's like, "Oh wow, this is like awesome shot," and I was thinking like, "Yeah, this is so much better than, say, what they tried to do in Endgame, which was just so like." I get it, it's cool, but they were making out like there's never been any like female superheroes. There absolutely has.
Yeah.
Like,
Sure.
never saw like Xena Warrior Princess in the
Yeah,
90s, or
exactly.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I could go on. But I mean, okay, it's like, okay, there's two things here. Like, one, what you said earlier, it's good that it's just happening, right? Even if it's not exactly how you, we can argue all day about like what the right way or wrong way to do it is. It's
Sure.
just good that it's happening. But as a filmmaker, I think your opinion's really valid here. Like, what do you make of it? Like, is it good? Is it bad? What can
I
be
think
better?
uh so, like, you brought up a couple of examples, where you said I didn't even realize, right?
Yeah,
And I think
right. Yeah.
that's when it's done well, is that you don't even realize. but at the same time, it's so important to have that representation, and stuff like that. I think we still have a lot of work to do.
Mm.
I really do. And a lot of people may disagree with me. It has been like mind expanding for me to see some of the projects that have come, um, with so much diversity and from a whole different, point of view. I think it's awesome. We watched a show called Pose. I don't know if you've ever seen it. In America, it's why can't I remember his Ryan Murphy. Uh, he worked on the show. Just a phenomenal show, but it's about Black trans women growing up, or living essentially in the early 90s as well. And just a such an impactful show. But it was something I'd never been exposed to. I didn't know that was even a thing, to tell a story about.
Mm.
And so to catch that point of view, like I said, it was really like eye opening, and incredible. I I think that's what art can do, right? Art can show you somebody else's point of view, and if you're open to it, and that's a big if these days. But if you open yourself up to it and allow yourself to really see from that point of view, uh, it teaches us so much. It can teach us so much about other cultures. Uh, you know, they say it's a lifestyle. I don't think LGBTQ is a lifestyle,
Yeah,
but yeah,
I always find that odd, like in the sense, yeah.
I'm
I
not
mean,
hiking.
but I think it depends though, doesn't it? Because like you often hear about like it's a community, it's a group of
Sure.
people, and it's like I have a lot of gay friends, I have a lot of friends I've had over the years, and they've all had different kind of philosophies on it. Like some are like, yeah, absolutely, I want to be part of this community, I want to do this, I want to do that, great.
Yeah.
And then other people are a bit more like, like this is a part of me, but it doesn't define me. And
Right.
it's like I don't know, it's an interesting one to me. I kind of marvel at it. I look at it like with like kind of wonder. Like I'm just it's just interesting to me. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
here in Manchester, we have gay village. It's
Uh-huh.
like a whole area where it's like loads of like clubs and different like venues and stuff. And there's a lot of history here as far as the LGBTQ and stuff. Like it's an interesting place to learn about these things.
Right.
And it's just a whole other world. And it's but then I see people all the time that don't hang out in those areas. They hang out elsewhere, and they're just like,
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. And I think that, um, you've got to kind of choose your path, right?
Mm,
It's about being an individual and about
yeah.
being yourself and being your happiest, best version of yourself. And sometimes that's really hard to get to and hard to achieve. But yeah, whatever makes you happy, if it's not hurting other people, then for me, it's always about growth and learning.
Yeah.
I feel like that, yeah, for me, that I feel like that's my journey, right? Is to try to find ways to be a better person.
Hmm.
And if that shows up in my art, then that's awesome, and really, like I said, that's kind of the point of Insignificant, is to try to boil down, the things I've learned in 48 years, and share them with people in a way that gives people some hope, and I keep saying it, but lets them know that they're not alone. So
Would you say generally in society now there's enough, let's say, resources and help and information, etc., for people like because I don't know, like it's not something I can really relate to personally, but as I say, I've had friends I've
yeah,
had friends at school, etc., and like it even in that time when we were at school. I remember our school was useless with that stuff. Like they tried not to alienate people. Like I remember, I don't think I've ever told this story on the podcast before. So, um, when I was at school in the 2000s, using the term gay was kind of like akin to, I don't know, saying like that's crap, that's shit. Like we
Right.
all
Yeah.
used it, including the gay people in my school. So
Right.
everyone used that term.
Right.
And there were two gay guys in my year, one of whom was outwardly gay. His name was Stefan, but we called him Steph, like affectionately.
Right.
And then there was another guy who I can't remember if he came out at that point because we were like 13, 14. So it was, he was very obviously gay. We all knew, but like, I don't think he was confident enough. And our school was like really cool and liberal. Like, I don't ever remember anyone being like homophobic or whatever. Like, if there were,
Yeah, that's awesome.
there was maybe
Yeah.
like two people, like.
Right.
But anyway, um, I'll never forget this assembly. Oh my god! So we're in this assembly hall, and there's maybe like 50 of us there, and the head teacher comes in, and he's just like, "Okay, guys, it's a really serious issue we have to talk about right now. We can't be using this word anymore. It's derogatory, and and here's the thing: the word gay is not derogatory.
At
It's
all.
how you use it. A lot of the time when you use a word, it's how you use it. Like so,
Sure.
you could make any word probably derogatory in terms of how you use the word. But like historically, gay meant like happy and good,
Sure.
and then it became like a negative thing, and now it just means it was just stating a fact, isn't
Right.
it? Right. So and the meanings of words change over time. I get it. And as soon as I heard that, like we all got the message in the first minute. It was like, okay, don't use this word in a bad manner. Got it, no problem. Right? Might take us a while to just
Get the habit, yeah,
yeah, it's like
knocked
a
out.
bad
Yeah.
yeah, but it's fine. Like we're not idiots. We'll get it. It's okay. But then he keeps talking, and this is where it gets horrid and awkward. He's like, "You have to remember, guys, that they're people too, and they have
uh,
feelings too." And I'm just sitting there with secondhand embarrassment. I'm like, and I turn and look behind me, and then Stefan's sitting maybe like 3, 4 rows away, and I just look directly in his eyes, and he's just like,
yeah.
like this, just like with his head in his hands, like, ah, pain.
Can I melt
And we had to.
away?
That's the thing. He kept going. We had to sit there for like 50 minutes listening to
uh,
this, and we all walked out like, oh man,
that's
useless.
and there's an example of somebody trying to do something good, but but
Yeah,
not
like
maybe hitting the
I don't
mark.
think the teacher meant bad. Yeah, I think he meant well, but yeah, the guy was in his like 60s or whatever, and he's just trying to be relatable, and it's like
Right.
it could have been a 1 minute conversation. You move on, but no, I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
but I would hope these days it's a bit more accepted. I mean, I've got people in my community, for instance, that are on the younger side, and some of them have like trans identities. Some are
Sure.
some are young and coming out, whatever. And it sounds like we're in a time where people are more accepting, but at the same time, you're still hearing the same
Yeah.
kind of difficulties growing. And I think maybe that's always going to be a part of just growing up. There's always going to be indifference. You're always going to be,
Yeah.
you know, maybe targeted for being different, but that's the thing. I feel like a lot of the time, like when you're an adult, like most people don't care about,
Mm-mm.
do you know what I
Right.
mean? Like, oh, you listen to this music, great, okay. Oh, you're gay, okay, great. Like do you know what I mean? You just keep moving on. It's like, are you a
Yeah.
decent person? Yes. Can we hang out? Yes. Great. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Exactly. And frankly, that's how it should be. But yeah,
yeah.
to your point, I think there, insignificant itself, I mean, it's angsty, right? I mean, that's what growing up is. I feel like it's
Mm.
dramatic, and it it kind of has these elements of making things out to be bigger than they are. But that's what we do when we're growing up, and so yeah, to your point, whether you're gay, straight, or whatever in between, yeah, there's always going to be um, some angst around being different, and trying to find your way. But that's it can be a tough thing for people, but at the same time, it's part of the journey, right? It's what makes us us.
What would be your main message to like the younger generation right now that maybe are coming out or trying to find their way in the world?
I uh I always think back to how I felt as a young teen or a teen in in that time frame, and it was just such an isolating thing for me, and I think for some of my friends as well, you know. But the beauty of living in the world that we live in now is that there is more acceptance, and you
Mm.
can be yourself. And yes, there are always going to be people who deride you for that. But that's going to be there no matter who you are or what you are. You're always going to have critics.
Yeah.
You know, there's always going to be haters. I hate to say that, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think the thing that I would say is find out who you are, find out what makes you tick, find out what makes you passionate, and throw yourself into it. Do it, be it, and live that. Because, you know, I look at my life as an example, and I've had a great one. There have been some bumps in the road, of course, but at the same time, I've had a great life. But I spent so much time when I was younger, especially, and even as an adult, trying to fit into other people's ideas and ideals of what I should be. I have a fantastic job. I work for a great company. Um, but filmmaking and storytelling, that's my passion. And, you know, for so long, I steered myself away from it because, you know, it's not stable and you can't make a living. And, but you know what? Here I am. It, you know, I said earlier, it takes audacity sometimes to take the chance to do something like that. Um, it's been such an amazing ride for me. I've met amazing people. We've gotten to tell a couple of really cool stories to me. Maybe they're not everybody's cup of tea, but you know, they're cool stories. And you know, we've made. I always say this: they're my film family. You know, we have we have turned this group of strangers that were cast, you know, in this little short film 4 or 5 years ago into a family. You know, James Yoder plays Ryan in Talisman. Um, After we wrapped Talisman, he decided he wasn't going to pursue acting, and he went into the military. Right?
Wow.
Yeah, a total about face. But he just got out, and like last weekend he came and like visited us. Right? He lives 2.5, 3 hours away. Came and spent, you know, the afternoon and evening with us, and spent the night, and we got to catch up. And it was like, this is all because I decided to take a chance. And I have these amazing relationships in my life because of that. Colin is another example. Colin is like a son to me. You
Wow.
know, truly, truly, and love his parents. We've gotten to be great friends with them as well. But, um, you know, he actually helped write Insignificant, which, you know, on a story that's as personal as this one is to me, to be able to have somebody come in and share your passion and want to tell that story and feel like it's important, is such a huge honor. So yeah, it like I said, it's been a great journey for me. I'm so grateful to have the people in my life that I have, you know, professionally, um, and personally. You know, it's things really can work out pretty damn well, you know, if you let them. So
Is that the goal then for you to become a full-time filmmaker? I mean, you say what are you doing for work right now? Because you're talking
uh,
about it as a passion, and man, I know where you're coming from on this. Like,
mhm,
I I so badly want to be doing what I'm doing outside
mhm.
of work for a living. So I know where you're coming from. I know how much it's just like eats you up sometimes.
It does.
But yeah, what are you doing right now? And what's the goal, man?
So excuse me, I'm a distribution center manager.
Wow.
So I'm sorry. I don't know what's happening. I'm losing my voice. There we go.
So overcome with emotion.
Yes. Yeah, something like that. No, I'm a distribution center manager. So I manage 102 people
Wow.
every day. It's a lot. It's very gratifying. I enjoy what I do for the most part. But yeah, to your point, the dream is to tell stories and to be a filmmaker, full time. Um, I'm I'm lucky, I guess, in a sense that in 7 years, I'm going to probably be able to pull the plug on my day job and
Mm.
pursue this. But if something happens in the meantime, that would be fantastic. But
That's the
at the
thing, man.
yeah,
I feel like it's a matter of time. You're already doing it. Like I think the same about what I'm doing now. Like
right, exactly.
it literally is just a matter of time.
Yeah. I
Like
feel like
one day.
if you continue to plug away, you do the work, something you said earlier, you're a good person. Um, so much of my experience, in the couple of projects that we've worked on at the next level, I guess, is about having great people on set and building a team that is, all pulling in the same direction to tell a story. Um, you want to be one of those people that you're like, yeah, I want him back because he was so great to have on set. He was helpful. He was supportive of his cast members. Whatever. Like, that's the kind of stuff that you should be trying to do. And so many times people don't do that, but
Yeah,
but
I don't
really they
understand
should.
this. When you hear
Mhm.
about like some famous actor or whatever that is apparently
Yeah.
really hard to work with, and you're just like, but why? Like,
Right.
because your work can dry up. Like, okay, I've shit on him before. I'm gonna shit on him now. I really dislike James Corden.
Okay.
I don't care. I know I'm not a big deal now. Maybe I will be one day, and this will become an issue. But fuck it.
Right.
He needs to be a better human being. Um, you just constantly hear these stories about how he's unprofessional and arrogant and over the top, and he rubs other actors the wrong way because of it. And it's
Yeah.
like, or people on set, like, do you know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm better than you. I'm the actor. I'm the big deal. And it's just like, yeah, but your work can dry up so quickly.
Yep.
That's why they call it 15 minutes of fame. First of all,
Very
secondly,
true.
I don't think you get anywhere in life by treating people like shit.
You
Like
don't.
it will catch
You
up with
really
you.
don't. Yes, it will. And I share your opinion, by the way.
Yeah,
Uh, but but
loving the
yeah,
James Corden slander
but
here.
yeah, at the end of the day, it's so much easier just to be a good person. Like
Yeah.
if you're living your dream and eh, being a famous actor and you have this platform and this celebrity, like why be pissed off? Why treat people like crap? You are literally living the dream.
Mm.
I just can't find anything about that to be upset about.
I think it comes.
Maybe on the other side it'll be different, but
I think it's the ego thing, man. Like
I think so too.
you got to look at like I was looking at like Jack Black the other day. Like there's a guy that's never changed. He's always been the same
No,
guy. He's just loving life, living life, right?
yeah,
And if you compare him to like James Corden kind of gives off this like entitled vibe. Like he's like, yeah, no, I deserve this. I deserve this attention. I'm a cut above everyone else. And it's like, look, we're all the same. That's the reality
yeah.
in life. We're all the same.
And does
Um,
anybody really deserve that attention? I don't know that they do, truly. But
I
at
mean,
the end of the day,
I'd look at it differently. Like I think because I've met a lot of celebs over the years, and they've mostly been disappointing, and it kind of made me just think like, oh, I guess they're all just arseholes, right? But they're not. Some people are just decent people, you know. But
right?
people are people. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter how famous you are or how successful you are. Like people are people. You remember how people made you feel. You remember how they treated you.
absolutely.
And
Yeah,
if I ever become successful or famous, I've said
you
this a
will.
million times before. Ah, we'll see, we'll see.
Now you will.
But if it ever happens, I'll do my ever loving best to kind of try to make everyone around me feel special, be it like a fan or people I work with or whatever. Because the last thing I'd ever want is to make another human being feel bad because of me. Like I take that stuff
Yeah.
really seriously. And I just think that like I couldn't imagine going around not caring about how you make other people feel. Like it feels off in some way. It's like, and especially sorry to bring it to a sort of a deep level, but look, I've had a lot of friends that have taken their lives over the years.
Mm,
Seen a lot of death. Seeing more now. I'm getting older.
yeah.
it's life's too short, man. Just be nice to
Yeah.
people. You have no idea. Even if someone's just being an ass to you, just try and be nice anyway, because you just have no idea, man. You just
No,
got no
and
idea.
I say that all the time, you know. You really don't know what somebody else is going through.
Mm.
And you know, I know through a lot of my struggles and my experiences over the years, I put a smile on, I made jokes because you know, hiding behind humor is a great coping mechanism apparently. But I don't know if it's a healthy one, but that's what I did. And but yeah, just because somebody's smiling and laughing and all that stuff, that doesn't mean that they're not struggling, and
Mm.
that, you know, a little kindness won't go a long way. So, and I really feel like as a society, that's sometimes the point that we miss, right? It's really a little kindness can go a long way. It's
It's
really that simple.
it's do you know it's interesting. I sort of go on a little tangent here, but like when I look at the media and what the media does versus what I see day to day on the streets in real life, it's two very different things.
Hmm.
Don't get me wrong, you do see like real kindness and stuff like that, but I feel like a lot of the time when it comes to the media, it's like, oh, we're doing this because we're trying to tell you that this is the right thing to do, and it's like, do you know what?
Yeah,
Like real kindness is just choosing to do the
organic.
yeah, you
Yeah,
just choose to do the right
yeah.
thing because it's just the right thing. Like, for instance, I was out the other night and it was like really early in the morning and we're partying, whatever, right? And it's freezing. It must be like -5. And we're outside and there's this homeless guy, right? And there's a
Hmm.
lot of homelessness in Manchester. I've done quite a bit of charity work here to help the homeless and
That's
stuff.
awesome.
I've
That's
seen it, and
awesome.
it's rough. Like it's not easy, and like you feel for them in days like this where it's just so cold. It's ridiculous. And he's just outside this shop, and the shop staff are refusing to buy him stuff, or they're saying like, "No, we're not going to let you in the store," something like that. And the
Hmm.
people I was with are like, "No, damn that, we're going to get him food." And it was just all of a bit of a ruckus. And then I see that the guy's crying, like he's upset, and I just come up to him and I sit down with him and I just started talking to him and I just said like, hey, here's a place I worked at for a while. This is what you can do. This is how they can help. Um, and he starts weeping and he's like getting me and I'm just like,
Yeah.
and I remember like kissing him and just being like, hey, listen, man, it's gonna work out. It's gonna be okay. But you gotta go through these procedures, whatever, go on this list, start getting yourself on there, like start moving
Yeah.
forward. Like this is how you do it. This is and like you keep trying, you keep pushing, it will happen. Because you see
Yeah.
it all the time. You see like stories of like people being on drugs on the streets or whatever, and then they change their life around. And it's a journey. It's not. I'm not saying it's just going to suddenly
Of
change the next
course.
day,
Yeah.
but you can change your life at any time. Like, and that's another thing I said to him. I was like, the only person that can change this is you
Yeah.
and you alone. But you can do this. And I don't know, like I don't know. I wasn't trying to say that stuff to be. I just felt like I needed to say that to him, and that maybe he needed to hear that because he was listening.
Sure.
He wasn't like
Yeah.
impatient. He wasn't like annoyed or anything. He was just listening to me, and
Yeah.
we were chatting, and I was like, that is an example of what like that's what's real because
Yeah.
we're
Absolutely.
that's the thing we're human and we need each other no matter how much we might try to deny it. We need each other, and that's how
And
you help each
I
other.
totally agree. And whether he took your advice or heard what you were saying,
Right.
honestly, the thing that probably mattered more than anything is that a human being took some time to have a conversation and so show some interest and some care and concern for another person. I really that's, I think, probably the most important piece of that, whether you realize that or not, you know.
No, I agree. Like, especially when you see people that don't extend that level of kindness, or like when you see people do the wrong thing or choose to do the wrong thing by another person, and it's kind of shocking sometimes. I see it sometimes at this place that I work, people's
Hmm.
decisions on certain things. And I get the decisions sometimes, but they're not always like morally what's acceptable or like what you should do. Do you know what I mean? And I always
Yeah.
try to err on that side because my conscience just punishes me. I can't lie for shit. I can't do the wrong thing because no, I just feel terrible, so I can't do it.
Yeah.
And as you said, it's easier to be nice and decent. Like, have you ever tried carrying around a grudge and being hateful in life? Trust me,
Yeah,
it just
it,
makes
it
things worse.
sucks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just
it
like
really does.
it's always better to go for the good stuff. Go for the moral. I
Totally
don't know,
agree. Yeah.
moral. So anyway, what's the best advice you've ever received?
um, it's funny. I did an interview in a magazine the other day, and the question that was asked was, you know, like about a motto or something like that. And honestly, it was just, you know, be kind, work hard, stay humble. I really feel like those are core tenets. I feel like you can go pretty far just by doing those things. You know, we all have a dream. Um, you know, yours to be an actor, mine to be a filmmaker. Um, and you know, but you have to work at it.
Hmm.
It doesn't just come to you, you know. And like for other filmmakers, it's, you know, it's easy to give advice, right? It's just do it. Like if you have an idea, I don't care if you shoot it on your phone, whatever, it doesn't matter. You know, people get all hung up on gear and what kind of technology. Nobody cares about that. If you
It's
tell a
true.
good, compelling story, it's a great story, right?
That's the thing. Look at my show. Like the camera's shit, my lighting shit. Like I got a decent-ish mic, but like I started with like a cheap 10 euro microphone. Like
Right.
what one day this will be in a studio and I'll have people in the
Of
studio and it'll
course it
be
will.
all
Yeah.
fanciful. But like as you said, it's just about doing the thing, and that's what people really
It,
care about.
yeah, it really is. And like we get hung up on that, you know. We like I said, I always, you know, that moment, like I told you, I was driving home that night and decided I was going to put up a casting call. It took, you know, 43 years to get to that point. And even then I was like, am I crazy? There were like several nervous breakdowns along the way, you know,
Right.
where I'm like, did I bite off more than I can chew? Um, but at the end of the day, I did it. And like I said, whether people, you know, enjoy Talisman or they don't, whether people will be able to relate to Insignificant, which I feel like Insignificant has something for everyone.
Mm.
It's not just about one character. You know, I guess I kind of see it from that lens because that character is based on me, but there's a lot more going on in the story, and I really do. I feel like there's something for everyone in this story, gay, straight, you know, absolutely something for everyone to be able to relate to. But um, yeah, at the end of the day, I took the chance and I did it, and no one can take that away. If we, you know, are lucky, you know, we won an award last night. So proud of that.
Congrats.
We've already won a few, and the show's not even out yet. Thank you. But it's not about that. You know, it's about the fact that we made this thing and we took that chance, and like I said, no one can take that away from you. At the end of the day, you know, if I were to die tomorrow, very dark, I'm sorry, but if I were, you know, I have a legacy of having told a couple of stories that were important to me, and and hopefully, you know, leaving behind a legacy of being kind to people and trying to be a good person. And I think that's a hell of a legacy, um, you know, truly. So yeah, I guess that's the advice is work at it, be kind, stay humble, and you know, you'd be really surprised what you can accomplish.
What's the biggest life lesson you've learned so far?
Wow, very deep, Christian. Biggest life lesson. I feel like I don't want to be repetitive here. All
Whatever
right.
feels right, man. That's the
Yeah,
usually the right thing.
it is. Um, you know, I think the biggest life lesson for me, um, obviously I've shared some of my experience today, uh, is finding yourself, finding out what makes you tick, finding out what makes you happy. it's so important. You really, it's really hard to get anywhere or to be a happy person or a fulfilled person if you don't find that sort of care for yourself. Um, and that manifests itself in a lot of ways, right? So for me, um, it's about the people that I surround myself with, and that sort of love that you get from the people that are in your life, whether it's family, friends. We talk all the time about chosen family in my house, because you know they say you can't pick your family, but you can. You can pick the people that you choose to surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with good people, I feel like your life really can be um, fulfilled in a way that you would never have expected. It took me a long time to kind of learn those lessons, um, but once I did, yeah, it's been a very rewarding experience, a very rewarding life. Sometimes I feel like I'm not worthy, like um, really, truly. Some of the things that I've gotten to do, some of the places I've gotten to go, uh, and the people in my life, it is a dream. So whether I, wind up making a $50 million budget movie someday or I don't, I don't know that that matters so much. What
Mm,
matters is that the journey um, has been so rewarding and fulfilling, and I, I I just feel like I have learned to, um, yeah, focus on the things that fill me up, that make me passionate, that bring joy, right? The world can be a dark place sometimes, but if you find those things that matter to you and bring you joy, it helps to brighten your world and kind of send you on a better path. I feel like, I don't know. I'm not very good with my words today for whatever reason, but yeah, I really think that's important.
perfectly put, man. Thank you so much. As we
I
draw
wish it
things,
was.
do you know what I always say? Like at the end of the day, when it comes from the heart, that's
Yeah,
when you know it's real, and that's the best thing.
yeah,
I stumble and fumble my words all the time, and my background's marketing. I'm used to like selling myself,
yeah,
advertising, all this stuff. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter as long as the sentiment and the realness is there. That's what
yeah.
matters.
No, you're right.
As we draw things to a close for today, do you have any upcoming
Mhm.
projects or final thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners?
So yeah, Insignificant will be out very soon, in the US and the UK. I'm hoping.
How soon is soon?
This is a tough question right now. When we booked this months ago, right? I
Right,
was
yeah,
like, oh
yeah,
yeah, by then I'll have a release date. Everything will be settled.
yeah.
And I was talking to Colin last night. I was like, I don't have a damn release date. It could be the 28th of this month. So I'm hoping for that, but we'll
Maybe.
have to see. Yeah. If not by the end of this year, then very early in 2023. So
Cool, man.
yeah.
Look forward to seeing
I'm
it.
excited. I'm excited about it. Like I said, I think people will be able to relate to some of the struggles that these characters are going through, and there's something for everyone. And but at the end of the day, it's a story that has some hope in it. So
Perfect. And I feel like today's podcast has certainly been full of hope and positive vibes and everything in between. So thank you so much for being a wonderful guest on the show, man. It's been a real pleasure.
it was totally my pleasure. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Pleasure is always mine. And to my listeners, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Christian Reeve podcast. As always, please let us know your thoughts. Let me know what you think. Let me know who you'd like to see on the show next. Let me know what you'd like to hear on the show next. And as always, be safe, be well, and I'll see you in the next one.